I decided to switch up the way I do my reading wrap up for 2026 in search for more creative ways to fight the brain rot. Hi, my name is Aisha. If this is your first time seeing me on the internet, then you should know that last year in 2025, I did a monthly wrap up and I titled it Fighting the Brain Rot. I essentially read books like I would normally do, but I went a step further to read articles from different sources about different things. And I was also intentional in documenting them and talking about what the articles taught me. For 2026, I decided to do something different. And this is because I noticed that when I would do the reviews for the books that I read in 2025, I had to sit down with them to remember all the things that the book made me feel or made me think about, or go to my story graph if I managed to document what I thought immediately after reading the book in my story graph. Thank God for story graph. I realized that a way of undoing brain rot would also be to note things down. So either in writing form or in video form. And I came across a quote that fully encapsulates this. So in order to be more articulate and to be able to organize my thoughts better, I decided that for this year's Fighting the Brain Rot edition, I'm going to discuss the book as I read them. So in some sort of diary form. And this is what I've done with this video. A quick disclaimer. So because this is the first time I'm trying this, documenting my thoughts about a book while reading the book and doing that with a camera and speaking directly without a script, it was a lot. I found it interesting though, but you see that for some books, I didn't end up sharing anything while I was reading the book because it is a work in progress. I'm supposed to do this from January to December of this year, inshallah. If you find this interesting, you can also join me on this journey. You don't have to upload your diaries, but I think this is an interesting way to further expand the ways that we fight the brain rot.
She heads toward the front of the line to stand next to Aurora, who looks adorable in a pink dress that matches her permanent blush. At least I'm next to Sophie, who's wearing lavender of all things. Really did not have her down as a pastel girl, but she looks good.
I am in a literal blizzard right now, but I realized that I didn't talk about my previously finished book before starting 2 new ones. So I'm talking about Talia Hibbert's Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. I think I already wrote this, but I finished it and I really liked that the book has a female character that is fat and she's in high school, but she doesn't make fatness the center of her life. I think I can cross. Yep, I'm gonna cross. Just gonna do it. Recording a review in a blizzard is actually crazy. I like that she's actually confident and she doesn't make the fact that she's fat the center of her life, which is really cool. It was also really nice to read young adults romance again, because I've genuinely forgotten what romance without smut feels like. It was really nice for me to experience that. This is such horrible weather. But anyway, I'm gonna go now. I'm currently reading 2 books actually. I started one last night and one this morning. So I'm reading, what's the name of this book? Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca, ekwuyasi. I should have read that book 5 years ago, but here we are today. So I started it last night, and I also started listening to Lola Jaye's The Attic Child. This I should have actually read last year in 2025, but I was delaying it, so I decided to just get into it. And I ran my errands, and it's still snowing, pretty much blizzarding. In fact, the whole floor is covered with snow. But I can't remember what I was talking about last. I was about to continue listening to Lola Jaye's Yatic child, but I can't because my headphone doesn't like water and it's snowing and my umbrella no longer works. So I'm just gonna go home now and then listen to it while I'm at home.
Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuyasi is a story that follows three Nigerian women, Kamberinachi and a twin daughter, Kehinde and Taye. Kamberinachi believes herself to be an Ogbanje, and an Ogbanje is a spirit that is born as a child but keeps dying and being reborn into the same family, causing the family grief. We have a variation of this in Yoruba culture as well, which we call Abiku. All three of them experienced a trauma, but Kehinde specifically experienced further trauma, childhood trauma, that seemingly fractures the bond of the family. About a decade later, Taye returns to Lagos to visit her mom, and then Kehinde also came to Lagos to visit the family with her husband. And through this visit, they are going to address their trauma, their pains, and hopefully heal from being in the same space. Hi, I just got home now, and it's really nice where I read Butter Honey Pig Bread too. So right now, I think I'm in page maybe 8 something, I can't remember. But essentially, I went into this book without reading the blurb of the book. I mean, I know that it is about sisterhood and mother-daughter relationship and all of that. So I went into it without reading the blurb because I just wanted to go into it blind. And so far, so good. Taye is an interesting character. Like, I actually think she's interesting. The book is also melancholic. I've been feeling very not melancholic-ish, really. Not like sad melancholy. Just like laid back. I feel like what people call thought girl, this old thought girl vibe book kind of thing. Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting from a book with an African twist. So I feel like this book can qualify as a thought girl book, but African. I don't know, but anyway, I like the book. I like how diverse the names of the characters are as well. So, for example, there's a character whose name is Farouk, and it just happens to be half French, half Algerian. There are two characters that I also recently came across. I think they are Farida and something that also sounds Arabic, and they studied at Covenant University. So random. And even the names of the three main characters, there's Kambiri, something, one very nice Igbo name, and then you have Taye and Kehinde. And it's interesting because then you think, oh, how did they become Taye and Kehinde? But then the Kambiri something grew up in Abeokuta. I'm sorry that I'm butchering this woman's name. I'm going to go and find the correct pronunciation of that name, and then I'll be able to talk about that better. But and then Taye randomly just mentioned that their father is Yoruba, or their father is Yoruba, and it checks out that then their names will be Taye and Kehinde. Anyway, I'm going to go and offload everything that I'm wearing because it's maybe -3 degrees right now and I just came in. So I'm going to go and offload, wash my hands, make some tea, and then continue reading. Hi, I finished Butter Honey Pig Bread, and because one of the last recipes that Taye made in this book is agege bread. And apparently she found a hack to make it more stretchy. I suddenly got the urge to make agege bread. And because my relationship with bread has been creepy these days, I went down this rabbit hole of trying to find ways to make bread more gut healthy, like less inflammatory. So I went out yesterday and got a bunch of stuff, and I've decided I'm going to be making my bread now. I'm not going to remove bread from my diets like I did before. I'm just going to make better bread at home. So I made the dough yesterday and I allowed it to ferment overnight. So I'm going to go and show you now. But yes, this is your sign to read fiction. You might wake up one day and get the idea or the recipe for your next gut-friendly food or something very interesting. Well, yeah, I really enjoyed this book. For now, I started reading The Message. Actually, I started reading The Message when I finished The Attic Child. So The Message is by ta-nehisi quotes. It's non-fiction because I want to read one non-fiction and also one book by a man this month at least, because I've not read any book by a man in January. And after I finished Butter Honey Pig Bread, I picked up Your Utopia. It's a short story collection by Bora Chung. I haven't read anything by Bora Chung since 2022, which is actually the year I started my YouTube channel, and I must have talked about it in one of my wrap-up. I'll link it in this video, of course. But yeah, so I started Your Utopia, and I have just about completed the first story. Hopefully I finish it. No, I'm not going to lie to myself. The most I can finish before this weekend is The Message by ta-nehisi quotes, because I'm listening to the audiobook. And for Your Utopia, I'm doing hybrid reading, so I'm listening to the audiobook while reading the e-copy. This is my dough ferment. I'm going to pop it. Ooh, see, it looks very bubbly. And it smells like so. So instead of using just normal bread flour, I added spelt whole wheat flour, I think is what it's called, to make it more gut friendly. And I didn't use butter, I used olive oil instead, just a small dash. And I didn't use a lot of yeast. I used just 1 teaspoon of yeast, as well as using honey instead of sugar. So yeah, I'm going to roll it out now, and we're going to bake the bread. They said I should not cut it yet, but it's very soft and thick. Thick bar. The main reason why I gave this book 4.5 stars is because I felt like of the 3 main characters that we had, one of them was mostly dominating the story, and I think that is Jaye. I wanted to hear more from Cambrinacci. I wanted to hear more of her story, especially when she was growing up, like more of her emotions, experiences. The Attic Child follows 2 main characters. Both of them have been trapped in this attic, which is the same attic, but their experiences are about a century apart. The first child is Dikembe. He's a 12-year-old boy that is growing up in a community in what is present-day Congo. Dikembe was taken from his homeland, seemingly given to this man whose name I honestly cannot remember now, and I'm glad I can't, by his mom, for him to pursue his education. And it's supposed to be back in a couple weeks. That's what Dikembe thinks. But obviously, we know this is not what happens. So now Dikembe has to navigate a lot of things. About a century later, a young girl called Laura, who is born into wealth and privilege and is white, also finds herself being abused and stuck in the same attic that Dikembe was stuck in. Obviously, she doesn't know this. Somehow, she finds an old porcelain door, a necklace of some sort, and some writings on the wall. And these are things that helps her overcome the abuse that she was going through decades later. Somewhere along the line, we eventually learn how Lara and Dikembe's lives and stories coalesce. This book is historical fiction written by Lola Jaye. It's based on an actual child. I've forgotten the name of the child, but I'll put it on the screen. She attends an exhibition in London, and she sees this image of a white man standing and carrying gun, and a young black boy in the background with wearing something that is supposed to depict the African savage. And the white man is named, but the boy is not named. Hi. So I am currently listening to The Attic Child. I don't know if I already did an update, but I am about, I think, 70% in. So, this book is very heavy. Like, it's actually very heavy. I've cried a bunch of times, and I've cursed colonizers a bunch of times. I've cursed every British person that's ever set foot in an African country to colonize people, as well as every European that's colonized people in general. I've just caused a lot of colonizers. And the book is good. I love historical fiction, especially historical fiction that are based on real stories, like people's actual lives, the lives of people that have gone before, especially when they are attempts by the authors to tell the stories of people that whose stories are not actually documented. So they are doing their best to imagine what these people's lives would have looked like. So the Arctic Child follows a young boy called Dikembe. And along the way, Dikembe's name is changed to Celestine. And Dikembe is from a community in what is present day Congo. So we get to hear some stories, like some of the atrocities that King Leopold, or whatever the name of that foolish man was, committed. And I feel like the part that has really affected me the most is the exploration of sexual abuse, sexual assault by this author, which I think is brilliant because, I mean, we think of the horror that these people commit or committed, the colonizers committed against these indigenous people. We think of the horror that they committed, and I feel like we don't always reel into the sexual horrors. And this is even more poignant and more painful because it follows the assault of a young boy, and in such a demeaning way, because then I have not gotten to the part where the assault becomes public knowledge, but I'm pretty sure that this horrible woman is going to say that the boy raped her because that's what the savages of Africa does. And this boy is just 14, it's just a young boy. And the writer is, oh god, I had to get my emotions in check. Anyway, the author has done such a lovely job in describing this boy's emotions. And so she's also examining, like up until this point, she has done such a brilliant job in describing how conflicted his emotions are from being taken from his homeland into this strange land, from experiencing the concept of racism, from trying to make sense of it all, from also experiencing just abuse in general, just domestic abuse. And then now she's describing his experiences with sexual abuse. And when you think of chattel slavery, you think, yes, the sexual abuse, because this is obviously mentioned, because like in American stories, when you talk about the experiences of Black Africans that were enslaved in America. But I think for Black British people forget that before the Windrush generation, before the Africans came to experience what the motherland looks like, the mother country looks like, people forget that there are actually Black British people whose experiences, even though are not chattel slavery, are very similar to the experiences of, descendants of enslaved Black Americans because of things like this. And I'm really glad that the author has examined it, and I'm glad that I pushed through my fear, because I was very afraid to read this book. I knew the strong emotions that this book was going to elicit from me. I just knew, and I'm very happy that I continued listening to the book. I chose to listen to the audiobook instead of reading the e-copy because I don't have the physical copy. And yeah, it is. Anyway, I'm just going to go continue listening to it now because I should finish it by tomorrow. I don't want to drag this book anymore. But on a lighter mode, I decided to start this cute painting thing that I've had lying around my flat for a while. And it has been very helpful for me to concentrate on listening to the book because I'm also busy in my hands with things. I'm going to show you now. The painting is just, I guess, numbered ones. It's supposed to look like so, like this painting. And I am currently here. I mean, it's really cool, but yeah, I don't know when I'm going to finish it. I think it's really cool. It's great for concentration. I am about to have breakfast or brunch. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest. But let me see if I can show you. So I've been on this, I guess, trick of making stuff by myself instead of buying them. So I made bread. You'd have seen it in this vlog sometime. I showed you. I'm very sure. And I decided to make patty today. I'm also eating very little processed food in general. So let me show you my breakfast or brunch. Brunch is basically the bread I made, some mayo. I think I took 1 teaspoon each. The patty that I made, as well as some Cheeto sauce. While I am eating my brunch, I'm also going to be reading my current read, which is Your Utopia by Bora. So I started this maybe 2 days ago, I think. And I'm almost done with the first story because it's a short story collection. Bora writes horror-esque stories. This is very much given dystopian. I've not seen the horror yet, but it's pretty dystopian. Transfer this to her now, and we'll give her some more tomorrow when we sell more. I thought he was joking. Your Utopia by Bora, translated by Anton, is a collection of 8 short stories. The central motif of the stories are death, mortality of human beings, as well as the possibility that machines are going to take over when the human race goes into extinction. They touch on the idea that human beings are eventually going to die. Like, that's the most interesting thing. And there was even a story, which is the titular story, Your Utopia, that explores the idea that even if machines replace human beings, they are also going to face some sort of extinction. So I'm currently reading the second story of Your Utopia. And this story is crazy. Basically, we have this virus that is spreading around and they don't know how it is spreading. And you can't know who has the virus because there's no symptom. The only symptom, there's no noticeable symptom. The only symptom is that anybody that is infected by the virus will just randomly start getting the urge to want to eat other human beings. Like, they'll just out of the blue just start eating people. It is crazy to me the way Bora has described these scenes where the characters are infected eat people. Maybe people are just sitting down and they are talking, and the next thing, somebody will just launch at the person that is sitting down beside them and they will start biting them. There was a character that ate his fellow colleague, ate him for 68 hours, and he managed to eat him from the whole human flesh to bones. Like, the man was bone at the end of the eating galore. And then when he finished eating, he just asked people for water, like wanted to drink water. That was all. Do you know how crazy this is? My favorite stories are A Song for Sleep, which follows a character that is experiencing dementia or Alzheimer's, as well as another main character, which is a machine, like an artificially intelligent elevator, which I thought was mind-blowing. Another one of my favorite stories is The End of Voyage. This is the one I spoke about. This is my first book by Ta-Nehisi quotes, and I was interested in reading it because of all the controversies surrounding it when the book came out, and that is specifically because of its chapter on Palestine. However, the message is a collection of 3 travel essays. I guess you would call it travelogue, but it's essays that he wrote about his travels to 3 different places: Dakar, Senegal, Colombia, South Carolina, as well as Palestine. The overarching motif of these essays are the concept of writing and using journalism, writing, reading, thinking to snatch back the power that oppressive structures have over our mind. I particularly enjoyed his essay on Dakar, Senegal, because there was a part where, again, this is why I don't know why I didn't record this, but we're a work in progress. We're a work in progress. One part I really enjoyed in his essay about Senegal is when he realized that he was essentially becoming the Western, I guess, racist people that studied negrology, or what did they call this thing, where they have this theory that Black African people are inherently stupid or inherently cannot make progress on their own. So when he was being driven through Senegal or through Dakar, he had this thought that, oh, this place looks underdeveloped or whatever. And he caught himself thinking like those people whose ideologies he doesn't support. And I love that he does a lot of introspection and critiquing of his own thoughts, of his own ideas in these essays generally. He does the same thing with the essay on his travel to Palestine. In fact, I feel like he does that a lot more because of the fact that up until very recent years, the status quo has been for people to be pro-Israel, essentially. I also love his essay on South Carolina. Gave me an insight into people's obsession with critical race theory. I genuinely cannot believe that there are people out there that are so they are so anti children being taught in schools about what American history is, especially towards Black people. It's just so weird. Thank you so much for watching this video up until this point. Please let me know if you find this interesting and if you'll be joining me on this method of fighting the brain rot. I think it will be really interesting, and I really hope that I get better at doing this. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I would see you in my next video. Bye.